do speak a bit, so I recommend putting your phones on silent mode or vibrate mode. That would be much appreciated. And while you're at it, you can follow us at Casa Bacardi PR on Instagram. Any post that you tag us in will be featured in our stories. Now, friends, where you are located, this facility of Bacardi makes rum 24/7. So that means that while on the tour, smoking and vaping is strictly prohibited. But worry not. Coming up on our right-hand side, we have a gray and red gazebo. This is our only designated smoking area that you can enjoy after the tour for all your smoking and vaping needs. Meanwhile, on the left-hand side, we have what is the pavilion area that we just left. That will be our point of contact in case any emergency should occur while on the tour. Now, folks, our legacy starts on February 4th of 1862 in Santiago de Cuba by a man known as Don Facundo Bacardi Maso, a man that revolutionized the world of rum in the 1800s. Now, our story starts in Cuba, but continues here in Puerto Rico, most specifically on our right-hand side across the bay in the marvelous town of Old San Juan. So if you've been to Old San Juan, you've probably seen that Foot Locker next to the CVS. Well, that particular building is known as the Ochoa Building, and that is where we had our aging and blending facility back in 1936. Now, it is until 1958 that we decided to cross the bay over to the smallest municipality of the island, the town of Catania, where you find yourselves today. It is in this small town that we acquired 127 acres of swampland that we convert into 127 acres of pure rum distillation. So if I have any American football fans on my tour today, that is an equivalent of about 96 American football fields that you can fit our facility of Bacardi in, now proclaimed as the world's largest premium rum distillery. And as we take this corner, I want you to look to the left-hand side one more time, and boom! There we go with the pavilion area once again, but this time from a slightly different angle. Now, the pavilion was designed by Felix Candela, a very popular and beloved architect from Spain, and was inaugurated for our 100-year anniversary. And in fact, when you look at it from this angle, folks, it is meant to replicate a bat in motion. So go on, take photos, take videos. If you don't see that bat in motion now, don't worry. Just wait till we finish with those mojitos and piña coladas. You definitely will, all right, friends?
Yes.
Now, as we move on, coming up on our left-hand side, we got about 3 palm trees. But if you notice, they look a little different from what you're used to. Now, these palm trees, they're covered in a dark matter, and this dark coating on our palm trees, this is known as the whiskey fungus. A fungus that grows in the proximity of alcohol or in the presence of alcohol, which we have here in abundance of Bacardi. So in fact, as we get closer to what is the production area, not only will you see it on our floral, but also on our building structures. And we see that right away coming up on our right-hand side on the roof of the warehouse. All that coats it is that same whiskey fungus on our palm trees. Now, friends, we are reaching also on our right-hand side our first stop of the day, known as La Galeria, or the gallery. So once the trolley comes to a full stop, I want you to exit on the right-hand side of the vehicle. Please, if you have any trash, take it along with you. We have a trash can inside. And make sure to bring your belongings as well, as the trolley will be left unattended. All right, folks? Some eating spot for the Bacardi family every now and then, and I'm talking 5th, 6th, 7th, and now 8th generation of the Bacardi family. Now, every now and then, we also open up this area for any locals who would like to hold events here. And hey, feel like you're VIP, because the governor was here like last week. So this is for VIP only, all right, my friends? Now, with that said, our story, as I mentioned before, starts with Don Facundo Bacardi Maso. He originates from Catalonia, España, and as growing up like a little boy in Spain, he grew up with that dream of becoming a businessman. Now, that dream comes true around the age of 15 when he heads over to Cuba along with his 2 brothers, Juan and Mahim, and they become merchants. Now, they started off in a general store. Later on, Facundo built his very own spirit trading company where he learned about the world of spirits through selling them. Now, this all comes to an end around 1852 when an earthquake, not just one, 2 earthquakes, come and absolutely wreak havoc on Cuba. But not only that, a cholera outbreak following ensued. So Facundo is found without a job, in bankruptcy, with difficulties, and he decides that he needs to find a new life path, and he settles on rum. Now, this is not easy to do during the 1800s. Ironically, not many people were drinking rum, as prior to rum had this connotation of like going together like fettuccine and alfredo, all right? So many people didn't want anything to do with it. They much rather what was gin or vodka. But Facundo was determined nonetheless to make rum the new spirit of choice of the growing middle class in Cuba. Now, with that said, although without much luck in the market, he was lucky in another way. So you can make rum out of 2 byproducts of the sugarcane. You can use guarapo, which is sugarcane juice, or you can use molasses. And back in the 1800s, because of the technology we had, many people preferred the guarapo because it was a lot easier to work with. So the molasses, they were throwing it away in any ditch they found around Cuba. Now, Facundo takes a bit of this molasses. It was like winning the lottery. Because in that molasses, he finds fermentable sugars. And he starts his decade of experimentation. Now, this decade of experimentation comes to a halt in 1862, where he culminates what is the creation of Bacardi, Superior Carta Blanca, the iconic silver rum that I'm pretty sure we're all familiar with in this room, hopefully, right? Now, he did it alongside his wife, Amalia Lucia Victoria Moreau, but for time's sake, I'm just going to call her Amalia, okay? And I swear it's just the same person. Now, Amalia, she wasn't just his wife, nor the mother of his children. She was the first investor of Bacardi, gaining an inheritance from her godmother, who unfortunately passed away from the cholera outbreak of Cuba. That inheritance goes to her husband in order to support his research and his experimentation, but not only that, in order to buy the very first distillery of Bacardi in Santiago de Cuba. Now, this is a second-hand distillery, so before Facundo can even get to work, well, they gotta inspect the place and make sure that it's all patched up and working. So as they do, they decide to check out the roof. Can you guess what they found in the rafters? A colony of fruit bats, okay, friends? Now, the fruit bat in Spanish and Cuban lore signifies good fortune, good health, and family unity. Now, Maria, she was a lover of the arts, and inspired by the significance of the bat, she decides to draw up the very first logo of Bacardi using the resemblance of the bat. And this became an excellent marketing technique because during this time, many people couldn't read. So they weren't going up to the bar asking for Bacardi. They were going up to the bar asking for the rum of the bat, all right, friends? Yeah. Now, business was going so well in Santiago de Cuba, they were able to expand into Havana, Cuba in the early 1900s, just in time for what was the Prohibition Act or the Volstead Act of the USA, where you could not produce rum or any type of liquor really, nor could you consume it, nor could you sell it or trade it. So many US citizens had the itch, they wanted their alcohol, and they decided to take vacations in Cuba. Where not only were they able to, spend a wonderful vacation, we were able to grow even more as an international brand straight out of Cuba. Now, the good times come to a halt around the late 1920s, where a new regime is slowly gaining power. With a civil war and another regime in power, well, the Bacardi family, they were seen as a threat to these new regimes coming up. So they decided to expand outside of Cuba, seeing how the economical political situation was looking. And they start in Mexico in 1931. Then San Juan, Puerto Rico in 1936. And then Cataño, Puerto Rico in 1958. And again, this is a family that somehow they have a talent of doing everything just in time. Because soon after establishing this distillery in 1958 is when the 60s roll on in and all of their assets in Cuba are seized and they are exiled from the country. And that, my friends, is how you made it here today to take a mixology class with me, okay? So talk about the butterfly effect, okay? Now, we are going to be taking a mixology class. Now, keyword here is mixology. I gotta let you know, every mixologist can be a bartender, but not all bartenders can be a mixologist. So we have to understand what is not only the art behind making a cocktail, but the science behind it too. Now, the science has to start with the science of rum, which is going to be the main component, I feel, or like the most special component in our cocktails. Now, keep in mind the rums that we'll be using in the mixology class are made with the same process as the rum that is found right in front of us. So before we get scientific, let's warm up the motors, okay, everyone? Now, right over here, we have a rum you can't find anywhere else in the world. And in fact, you can't find this anywhere else on this island. You have to take the plane right here, the Uber right to Casa Bacardi, and let's not forget that 2-minute walk from the pavilion to our store to obtain what's right in front of us, okay, friends? This is the last gift that Joe Gomez, our former master blender, gave to the company after spending 40 years with us. This is Casa Bacardi's house rum, our special reserve. A blend of rums, and we'll talk about what that blend means, but a blend of rums from 8 to 12 years. Once blended, this rum goes through a finishing of 1 month in Sherry Oloroso wine cask barrels from Jerez, España. The only rum we bottle on site. So please, feel free, friends, to have a try for yourself. Now, before we do, yes, get the close up. Before we do, keep in mind this is a rum that took many years to make. Lots of love and care. So we would appreciate you sip on it, take your time. Then you are the type to down the rum. Number one, family owned spirit brand. And as we take this corner, We're going to take a quick glimpse of our current production line. If you smell any food, worry not. That is right here on our left-hand side, our employee cafeteria. While on our right-hand side, you'll find what is our production area. Starting with the building at the corner here with the tall green windows. That is our Jose Gomez building, aka our blending facility, where we conduct the final blend of our two aged rum bases. One of them known as El Destilado, distilled in those 5 column stills in the back, while the others known as Aguardiente, distilled in that single column still behind the tall beige building. Once these 2 rum bases, as we know, have been distilled, filtered, and aged apart, they finally meet each other in what is the Jose Gomez building to create that final blend that we know as Bacardi. And as we move on forward, coming up on our right-hand side, we have a tall beige building. This is Bacardi loud and proud at the top. This is our cathedral of rum, where we hold our most essential ingredient, the yeast. Now this yeast, we've been using it since 1862, since it's been found in the sugarcane fields of Santiago de Cuba, and now lies on what is the 4th floor of the building, behind 3 security doors, where only 5 people in the entire world have access to it. Now, when this yeast is ever transported out of the island, the person transporting the yeast must be handcuffed to the briefcase, because without this essential ingredient, Bacardi would never taste the same. Now, besides yeast, you know that we also use molasses. So coming up on our right-hand side, we have a red and black locomotive with the name of 3 towns on the side. Ponce, Guayama, Arroyo. 3 towns that were essential to what was the sugarcane industry back in the day for Puerto Rico, all located in the south, and this was in fact one of the locomotives that would travel from the south up to the north so we could continue making rum. Now besides molasses and yeast, we also use water, and those 3 ingredients jumpstart our rum making process for fermentation, which occurs in our fermentation tanks, which are the big brown tanks coming up on our right hand side. We have 20 fermentation tanks, each one with a capacity of 50,000 gallons of liquid. Once fermented, we end up with that distiller's beer, which we further distill into our 2 rum bases. And as we take this corner, folks, I want you to keep looking to the right-hand side, because at the end of the road, you find a dark blue tank. Now, keep in mind, on site, we have 3 of those dark blue tanks, each one with a capacity of 2.5 million gallons of molasses. Molasses we now source from Guatemala and the Dominican Republic, considering that here on the island of Puerto Rico, we no longer grow enough sugarcane for our large demand of rum. And now, friends, we are reaching our second and last stop of the day, known as the Visitor Center.